Hey gang, welcome to the We Speak English. Hey Farnell.
Hey.
Hey man, we're having trouble. It looks like the whole platform is having trouble going live. I've just looked it up, and I guess a lot of people are having problems right now. So, if you don't mind, we'll just do it the old-fashioned way, and we'll just chat. I'm recording video right now, so this will still go up on YouTube. But I'm gonna stay live and see if it kicks on. But for right now, we'll just do it the old school way, like they used to do it before they were streaming it.
Exactly.
But yeah, man. So we can just get started whenever you're ready.
You want a live thing?
Yeah.
Look what.
Yeah, I'm cool whenever you are.
Oh, all right. Do you mind putting on your camera?
Oh yeah. No, I don't mind.
Sweet. All right. I'm actually putting some on Twitter right now. Uh, Well, this is a big bummer for me because I was very excited to have you live on chat, but this will do. I mean, again, we're going old school. Oh shit, and you can't even see me. Wow. Let me get you. Let me get on here. Um, there we go. All right, here we are. Anyways, Farnell Newton, thank you so much for coming on the show. I really appreciate it. I think I've told you that like 20 times in the last 30 minutes, so I might as well say it again. Thank you so much for coming on.
Thanks for having me.
Of course, of course. How is your day going? How is Farnell's day today?
Oh, it's good. You know, meetings and work and family and dogs and busy day.
Hey, man. Hey, the life of a musician. It's funny how people think that musicians' lives are like this, like lazy, like crappy lives. Oh, thank you, Reina. You, so Reina can still control the chat, which Reina is my mod. So she
Yeah.
can still control the chat, but you can't. We for whatever reason we can't go live. Although I'm seeing everyone else going live right now, I can't go live. It's crazy. So
Yeah.
we're doing this. In any case, I don't know, man. Did you have a? Did you? Do you ever have any pushback coming up as a musician with your life choice to be an artist, or were you
I
pretty?
mean,
Were
there's
you?
always pushback, you know.
Yeah.
But I mean, but I've always prioritized, you know, my life and and
Sorry.
connected with, you know, I was always about my family and such, and taking care of business at home and such. I love being an artist, but I also got to make sure that home is taken care of.
Yeah. Yeah. So what does that entail then? Does that mean that you don't go out on the road, or does that
I
mean
mean,
that
or
you?
I might when I'm home, I'm home.
Mm-hmm.
When I'm home, I'm not touring as much as I used to in the past. But when I'm home for, you know, picking kids up from
Mm-hmm.
basketball, track,
Right.
music, taking them to where they need to be, making sure I'm home and available to help out with, you know, home life with the
Right.
wife, and
Right. Right.
you know, just to balance out, because she can't get her work done if she has to manage everyone else's in the house
I feel that,
jobs.
man.
And
No, it's a partnership, and that's the thing too. You know, I think there's this misconception where like people think that musicians just lay around all day waiting for the next hit to come magically appearing in their brain, and meanwhile the kids, you know, need tending to. The wife is doing all the work and stuff. It's not how it works. You know, it's like I feel like there's this big misconception about musicians and what they do, especially artists in general. It always seems to me like it's I don't know, like people expect us to be something to I don't know. They expect us to be like this successful entity if we want to be a musician. Like and but according to their success, right? Like
oh, of
you
course,
know, like it's like they want you to be like if you're not on the cover of Rolling Stone magazine, which whatever that means anymore. If you're not on the cover of Rolling Stone magazine, then you ain't doing nothing. And you know, like I don't know, like have you dealt with that kind of I don't know stigma before? I mean, especially coming from you know family members or
I mean,
friends.
I just always kind of moved to the beat of my own drum anyway. So no matter what people would say anyway, as long as I was taking care of myself and my family and immediate family, you know, it was always that was the priority before anyone else,
Yeah.
you know. Plus, you know, I've done the international touring and playing with legends and OGs
Mm.
and such. So, you know, and I love working with young artists, and you know, I've kind of been around the block enough that I could kind of choose to do my own thing and not have to worry about what other people are saying, you know,
That's
or
true.
doing.
Yeah, that's actually that's a great point because you have put in your dues, you have put in the
Yeah,
work, and you're at a place in your career where you can just pick and choose on what you want to pursue
yeah,
and what you don't want to pursue.
yeah. And I
Um,
also did my thing a little backwards, you know,
mm,
where my friends, when they got out of school, they went straight to touring and gigging, where I came to Portland, Oregon, and I had a family.
oh
You know,
wow.
now, you know, I have grown kids, and my musician friends now who took the other route are now trying to have kids, starting to have kids, and
Yeah.
trying to buy their first homes and
Yeah.
things where, you know, I've already done those things.
Wow,
I'm like,
that's
I'm
awesome.
just ready for the babies to get older.
So then when you got out of school, you went to Portland and you set anchor and you decided to put down roots.
Yeah.
What were you doing in those first days after college that allowed you to do that? I mean, I guess the question is what because music, especially early on in a career, isn't that fruitful monetarily, or at least it can be or can't be for certain people. It depends, right? It's everyone's
Yeah.
story is different. But were you working as a musician and buying a home and starting a family, or did you start out in a different avenue?
Well, I mean, I've always had a like a day job.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I worked when I first moved to Portland. I worked at a community center
Oh, sweet.
for Portland Parks, working with kids and computers and such. But at the same time, I was still gigging full time. I was taking, going on the scene, networking, meeting people on the jazz scene, on the Latin scene, on the funk and soul scene, and paying all the dues,
Yeah.
sitting in with everyone, taking all the gigs
Gotcha.
and doing all of that stuff because you're new in town. When you're new in the city, you gotta the only way people can know about you if you go out and network and play.
Mm-hmm.
So I was doing all of that for years before I bought my first home or got married and things like that. So I put in a lot of time and effort. But like I said, I kind of did it backwards and different. Where those same friends we went to school together, they were already in Europe and touring
Wow.
and such. So, but like I said, it's just I kind of like went about my own way and followed my own drum beat, and things still led to where they're at today.
Right.
And I feel like there's no one way of like success. Like you don't have to be on the front of a rock and roll magazine or hip hop magazine or jazz magazine to let people know that you've made it or you're successful, because success is different for everyone. Hey, are you paying your bills?
Right.
Are you paying your mortgage?
Right.
Are you taking care of responsibilities you have? Do people know who you are? And if they don't, what can you do to make those people know who you are and such? Just grinding.
Yeah, man. When you first got to Portland, how was the music scene? How was the music scene, and what time period, if you don't mind, was this?
Well, I moved to Portland in 2000,
Oh, okay.
and I didn't know really anybody. My ex-wife was from Portland, so I knew a few people and such, and but it was just about like seeking out people and such. Like I heard of Mel Brown, drummer who played with Motown and Temptations, and so I seeked him out at his shows. Or I heard there's some Latin bands, or there were some hip hop groups, and so it was like seeking out people, finding out where they go, where are the places. I mean, I think I used to get lost my first year because I didn't know how to get home. Sometimes, this is before GPS,
GPS.
MapQuest, you had to print out your instructions, but MapQuest was always wrong at some point. So I would find myself like out in the wrong part of Portland, not the wrong part, but just
Right.
lost and
Right.
not knowing where I'm going. And, so, doing all of that and spending time and learning the city and learning the people and meeting who's who and who's what, and trying to align myself with those people and also make a name for myself.
Yeah.
I mean, but Portland's always had a vibrant music scene. There's been OGs, and you had Pleasure, the funk band here in the 70s. You had even people like Chris Bodie, who's like mega jazz artist playing with Sting and such. And then you got Esperanza Spalding, and then you got hip hop people like Amine or Lifesavers. And, there's so many great musicians from this city.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. And I think how did I think I heard about you first from a cat named Jared Lawson.
Oh, yeah.
And
Yeah. I just played with Jared last night.
oh, awesome, awesome! I love him. Like, great artist. He has a great voice, great feel on the keys. And that's sort of how I found you and Chance. Is that his name? Chance?
Yeah,
Hayden.
Chance Hayden.
Chance Hayden, who's been on the show before.
Yes.
And like, I just really, from that moment, when I found Jared, because it was his first album, he had just released it, and it was like right before it got like the attention, because it got some heat, and you guys went, well, you were in London and stuff playing with him, so what happened. But it was like right before that, and I was just like, wow. And it actually led me down this path of like looking into Portland musicians and stuff. So I really started looking into it. And then like I found Swatkins and Chance and Jared and Alan Stone and just like a really amazing crew. I really appreciate music scenes that sort of retain and hold their like creative, their high end creatives. You know what I mean? I live in a city, it's Toledo, Ohio.
Oh yeah, I've been there.
Well, yeah, exactly. You're laughing, and that's a great reason. That's a great. So like cities like this, talent tends to go. It doesn't stick around. There's not really, especially after this pandemic, there's not really a whole lot of work here. And especially if you're not interested in working and playing like Brown Eyed Girl to drunk people every night,
Yeah.
if you're not into that, then, there's not really much of a scene here. And if there is real talent, it tends to leave. I always respect cities that hold on. What do you think it is about Portland that sort of attracts such talent?
I mean, the city itself, it's the West Coast vibe, it's nature, it's people are nice. At the time, back in the day, cost of living was not expensive. It was, the food and the location and such. I mean, I feel like people just come out here because they get attached to the nature, the scenery, and such. I mean, I loved it. When I first came here, I was like, I don't want to go back out east. I was like, I'm good. It's relaxing. People are cool.
I'm home. Yeah.
I remember walking down the street in my early Portland days and somebody smoking a joint and being like, yo, you want some? And I was like, what? Like you're offering me a joint? Like, I don't even know you.
Daylight?
Like, just people just super nice and and it's laid back. It's chill. So it's part of that West Coast vibe. And I love it here. I'm not going anywhere because I've lived in Ohio and I've lived in Philadelphia and Denver, Colorado, and in those different places. And I appreciate those places, but I love the West Coast,
Yeah, me too, man. I miss it a lot. I actually lived in San Diego for about 13 years. And then about a couple years ago, me and my wife moved back. Oh, I moved back here. My wife's from San Diego. So, I love the West Coast, man. I love, we lived in OB. I've seen you at Winston's a few times, it's like, there's nothing like the West, man. The East Coast has there's some there's some realism, that I feel like, and maybe just because I was in the Southern California bubble, because that is totally its own little bubble, right? Like NorCal is like a totally different from Southern California, but I just feel like there's a realism on the East Coast that I can take or leave, leave or I'd rather be with people who are fake. At least at least the sun's shining in Southern California. Can't say the same about Portland. Can't say the same. But, I like Portland as well. It's a cool town, man. It's a really cool town. And I've seen some really good shows there and got to do some cool stuff there. So much respect to the West Coast.
Definitely.
But
definitely. And the East Coast, they got their own vibe and their own things happening. But if you look at it, look where everybody's moving to. Everybody's moving to Portland. Everyone's moving to the West Coast. Everyone's moving to Denver.
Yeah.
I remember when, Denver was not the jam band capital of the U.S. Now it's like jam band capital. People are moving there, or Asheville, North Carolina, or the New Orleans.
Yeah.
But a lot of people are moving to the West Coast because it's a whole different vibe in Denver and compared to anywhere else. So.
Yeah, for sure. No, Motet, right? Motet is one of those bands that moved from Portland to Denver, right?
Yeah, well, some of them definitely were from Portland. Dave Watts and all of those guys was in moved from Portland down there and such, and lived in Denver and such. So you got the Lettuce guys moving to. All living in Denver or New Orleans.
Andy Franco moved there.
So, it's
you have it right. I didn't even think about that. It is the jam band capital.
Yeah, I mean, and then you got. But the thing about it, back in the day, it was cheaper.
Right.
It was cheaper in certain parts and stuff. You got Alan Stone, who's out near Seattle, and because they could live comfortably. You know, my thing is like, yo, when I got off the road, I want to be somewhere and hang out and like relax and not have to be like getting off the road and going right back in the hustle and bustle. Like I want to chill and relax, you know?
Right. Yeah.
Crazy.
Yeah, no kidding, man. It is crazy. So then you I know you said that you spent some time in Ohio. You went to Oberlin College, correct?
Yeah, yeah. I
I,
was doing all the Latin stuff in Cleveland and the Latin salsa bands and merengue bands. You know, we went to Toledo, Akron, Erie, PA, Detroit, and different places like that.
how was your experience in the Midwest? What did you take away from it?
Oh, I loved it. I mean, it was cool. You know, the Midwest has its own thing. You know,
Yeah.
it's got its dry heat and its storms and things and such. The music scene was great at the time in Cleveland. It's a lot of stuff, a lot of great players, a lot of young musicians and such. Uh, and you know, but I was there for school, so you know, I spent 5 years there and played with everyone in Ohio and stuff, and it was great. But you know, it was great to have that a part of my journey. You know,
Mm.
as far as being a musician, because that's where I cut my teeth and playing at a lot of different clubs in Cleveland, like the Bop Stop and Mardi Gras, and you know, I was playing with a bunch of gigs with Aretha Franklin in Ohio back when I was like 20 years old,
Yeah.
and my professors were all gigging musicians in Ohio and all over Cleveland and Detroit and such. So,
I love
you
it.
know, it was a great time to be there.
Yeah, yeah, that's so awesome. And those are those moments in life that you can't like it's really hard to those experiences are really hard to find and to like because like you're really I mean like to be in a position where you have your instructor is actually gigging with you or gigging side by side or on the same grind as you are
Yeah,
and laying out this path of like hey this is how you can do it too and this is
yeah,
I love that like all my college professors were all like I remember this one guy was like, if you can't see yourself playing music every goddamn day, then get out.
yeah.
It's like-
We always surround to the old school guys who have that philosophy. You know,
right.
we had, I mean, at Oberlin, we had some characters. You know, we had, you know, you got Greg Bandy, who's played drums with Gary Bartz and Pharoah Sanders and Kenny Dorham and all these great jazz musicians. And he, you know, he shows up to the gig wearing all kind of outfits and smoking more cigarettes and talking smack and it's like every time you get on the stage you better play like it's your last time. You know, it's like, you know, but the thing about it, we appreciated that. You know,
Right.
those guys told us stories and history and experiences that, you know, we would never get anywhere else. You know, they was telling
Absolutely.
us stories about the greats that they got to play with and connect with. And those are all a part of us growing as musicians. You know,
Right.
it's not just about playing the 12 notes, you know, all over the horn. It's about the experiences and that's what the soul is at. That's where this is being soulful is at, you know.
Yeah. Yeah, man. I love that. I love that idea of like it's like continuing a lineage, you know? It's like
Oh yeah,
continuing information. It's like carrying the torch and you're passing it on to another.
exactly.
And it's very meaningful and it's super spiritual, man. Like I don't know like if you look at it like that, you know, like but do you look at music as a sort of a spiritual practice?
I mean, in a way, yes. I mean,
And, you know,
it's
I'm not saying
definitely
it's like replacing your God or whatever you
no, no,
believe
no.
in,
But
but
it's
like,
very. I mean, it connects us all through, you know, whatever it is, sonically, rhythm wise, lyrically. You know, some people see colors when they hear music. Some people experience different body sensations when they hear music and such. And you know, I mean, it's one of the it's a stress reliever. It's you know, I've literally met people and had experiences where they've been like, hey, I've had the worst week of my life. You know, like this music has saved me, or this is where, like, even in my own experience, like if it wasn't for music, I don't know where I would literally be at growing up in Miami, Florida, being a young kid, taking up music, and I grew up, in the projects and poverty and crime and violence and things like that. So like, music saved my life in a way. It kept me out of the streets and doing other things. So, I mean, and it's, if you think about it, what religion is not what music? I mean, this music is a very close part to religions and things as well. From even in Catholic music, or even in Baptist church, or in the Kojic church and Church of God of Christ. Like, music is a very important part of getting people to that point of receiving word and such. I mean, we could go on and on, but yes, music, as my old professor said, music is my religion.
Wow. Yeah, it's definitely one of those things where I feel like if you serve it, it will serve you.
Oh yeah, always.
We're live now. We're finally we're live, Farnell. We finally did it.
Dun, 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 dun.
Thank you, Twitch. Oh shit, I don't even remember what I was saying.
Woo!
There you go. Yeah, were you a fan of wrestling growing up?
Oh man, come on, like, dude. I was like, Ric Flair, Dusty Rhodes, Coco Beware.
Yeah.
Like I was old school WWF.
Yeah, before WWE.
Yeah,
Yes,
like I think when that switch happened, I started to like fade away. But I was like old school Andre the Giant and
Dude,
Hulk Hogan,
Hulkamania, son.
The Road Warriors and all of those things. Like, dude, I watched that all. But I tell people I grew up with my grandmother, and my grandmother would just have the TV on. She was one of them old school people that just had the TV on all day. So I watched, she'd be watching her stories, Perry Mason, court shows, and then I'll be watching like wrestling and cartoons.
Hell yeah. Yeah, for real, man. It's like, dude, there's something about wrestling that's just so, people call it fake. I see that, Reina. I see you want me to do Hot Boy Summer, but you're going to have to give me a second, all right? I'm trying to talk to Farnell here. So the request is, now that we're live, they're trying to get me to do things, and I'm gonna chill for a second because I feel like we're still establishing a relationship here. So
yeah. Plus the stream was all crazy.
Yeah,
so,
exactly. The stream was nuts, and welcome everybody who's kind of coming in. We've been having trouble going live, so we just got started, and I'm recording this. So this whole podcast will be out as a video version on YouTube as well. So anything you missed, you will be able to go back and check out on YouTube. I'll make sure that I actually I bounce the VOD out today or whenever they let me, so you can go and watch I don't know if... Anyways, I'll upload the whole video in the next couple days. So anyways, whatever we were just talking about, it seemed like it was getting deep. So let's change out. So you said you grew up in Miami, Florida. You grew up in the projects, and so how did music come into your life, and in which ways did it sort of help you get past what can come with living in the projects, getting sucked into a lifestyle.
It was one of those things in elementary and middle school. Mm-hmm. In middle school, it was like 7th grade, and they said you have 2 electives. You could take home ec, which was cooking, or you could take music. And as a 7th grade, I didn't know anything about cooking. I knew about putting fish sticks in the oven, nuggets in the oven, those type of things. And I think I knew how to just make sandwiches and cereal. But so I chose music, and literally it was probably the best decision in my life, because I didn't know at the time my family history and how many musicians were in my family, from my mom and her aunts and her uncles and sisters and brothers who all were involved in music. So, but it's literally it's probably one of the best experiences of my life, and I never regret it today.
Yeah.
I was either going to be a trumpeter or be the next Emerald. What's his name?
Emerald Lassie.
I don't know.
Bam.
Yeah, bam. No, but yeah, that's just where I really latched onto it and really enjoyed it. Um, just sharing music with other people in a room and connecting with people, and I loved it.
What was it one of those things where you sort of came into it and it was just all encompassing? Because, I mean, you can only practice your instrument for so long, like I'm
Yeah.
just curious on like, was it something that you sort of became obsessed with very quickly, and that's sort of what kind of kept your nose clean coming up?
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I feel like it was one of the things that I don't think before then I really had anything that I ever was like, that's it.
Mm-hmm.
Like that's what I want to do. But this music, when I got start playing music and what it was doing to me, and it was like a piece. It was
Mm-hmm.
finding a place where that I can like actually learn this thing and make a note and play music and such. I used to take my horn home and when I used to stay with one of my aunts for a while, I had to practice in the backyard because the house is so small, the duplex is so small, we couldn't stay. I couldn't practice in the house
Yeah.
because there was only so many rooms. So I would sit in the backyard in Miami on my case and just practice. I don't know. It was that thing that just connected, and I was like, this is what I'm gonna do for the rest of my life.
What a blessing, man. What a blessing.
Yeah.
It's when you see people who are they're like 45 and they still don't know what the hell they want in life, it's like, man, that's really hard to that's hard to witness, but I mean that's a very common thing. How many people don't
Yeah.
find that thing that drives them, that passion?
Hmm.
Um
And it's different for everybody.
of course.
It's different people have different paths, and some people are not going to really find what they really want to do until later, or until they kind of like let go of all of whatever things that have been holding them down for all of those years and such, and find a thing that kind of just gives you joy.
Yeah, man. It's just I feel like over this last year we saw the big crack in society and culture in regards to how many people really don't have a direction in life, and once the world was sort of paused, how many people, I mean, it was like a lot of lo-fi jazz. Oh, is that you?
That's me.
Awesome. Hell yeah.
I'm on my Twitch, and I was like, "Hey, I haven't followed it yet."
I appreciate. Hey, I'm gonna follow you back. If I would have known, I would have put it in your thingy here
Oh
in
yeah,
the
it's all
chat. But
good.
shit. See, I forgot what I was gonna say. That's the other part of this. I love Twitch and I love the live aspect of things. But it's like any little thing makes it's like I'm a squirrel, man.
Oh yeah. Well, it's
What?
a lot of ways to get distracted on this thing. I mean, you got stuff popping up, and you got your like
Oh,
Streamlabs bot, and then someone's like, "Yo," and you're like, "Yo," and then you're like, "Wait, what were we talking about?"
yeah. I know, man.
Okay, hey,
Hey,
it's just
exactly, man.
how we're just hanging out. That's all we're
Exactly,
doing.
exactly. Oh, well, it was. I don't know, man. Like when you saw last year and you saw all the unrest that was going on, particularly in Portland, there was a lot that went on, and if I don't know if that's died down at all, but like, what was your take on what was sort of going on last year and how, especially Portland? I mean, it seemed like Portland seemed to be a hotbed. You know what I mean? Like every day, Portland's in the news. So
Yeah, it was a whole West Coast thing,
yeah,
in a way, because if you think about Seattle, remember they took over.
yeah,
They had the autonomous zone. They took over
Chaz.
a whole area and locked it down so that no one else can come into that area.
Mm-hmm.
So that was even crazier. Like, yeah, we definitely Portland definitely like shut it down as far as like the city hall in that area, and also that Justice Center downtown and such. But it was just like it was needed. It was, if it wasn't for a pandemic and people being laid off of work and furloughed and such, and I just feel like everything lined up to happen a certain way that people were able to really learn and find out what was truly happening, because it wasn't just a, like for me, as growing up in the Black community and being raised, myself, my ethnic makeup, I'm Black, I'm Scottish, and I'm Choctaw Native from Oklahoma,
Oh,
by
wow.
way of Oklahoma. But like I felt like people saw that it wasn't just a black and white thing, or it wasn't just a black and cop thing, because they were seeing in the media now where cops were pushing over elderly white people and almost killing them, or running over policemen, running over women and young people, and black, brown, white, and now people are seeing like, hey, this is not just a black thing. It's a us thing,
Mhm.
altogether thing. And I think people seeing George Floyd, his death online, woke a lot of people up. Even though we also saw this before with Eric Gardner in New York over a cigarette,
Right.
but I feel like it awoke in a lot of people, because people were out of their comfort zones because they weren't working. They had the time. They were at stay at home, mandatory, government issued placement around the country.
Yeah.
So I think it just really woke up people and just made people understand and really see what was happening. And Portland was just kind of tired of it here, and in the city.
Do
you
you
know
do you think that the extent of the reaction was acceptable, in how things went down? Because I know that I think there was a fire bombing, right? Like they were
Oh yeah.
firebombing
Well,
this
the thing
city
about
hall
it,
and stuff.
mainly, most of the things did take place only at. Yeah, that was the thing. Media. Media makes certain places and people look a certain way,
Absolutely.
even if you're not from there. Because when I lived in Ohio, only thing I knew about Oregon and Portland was skinheads, because
Really?
that evidently that was a thing, I think, in the '90s.
Yeah.
But I didn't know that. But that's what the media made it look
Right.
like. So when I came to Portland, I was like, oh, where's the skinheads? I was like, I kind of was like, wait, this is totally different than what I was told it was going to be.
Right.
So, the government the ex-president and a bunch of other people making it seem like Portland was burning down to the ground. And it was just a certain localized area that the focus on all of this was happening. Yes, there were marches and protests around the city, but the focus of it was just like in a couple block radius. And I think it was needed, and let people know like, yo, this is what needs to happen for
Mm.
us to unite, not just like black people, but white people, but also moms. You had like the mom block people, and the moms coming out with like yellow t-shirts and standing in front of troops,
Mm.
and all of these different people. And it just people just saw that, it's not just about, I mean, it was about all of us. And some places, we still struggling. We haven't made any real leeway, like budget cuts and such. A lot of that stuff hasn't really brought real reform. And that's why some people want us to I mean, we could get into politics and such, but the thing about it is still not happening like that, but things are still happening in Portland on the ground level, and a lot of different things are still happening. But that affects us all, music wise,
Mm.
where we're at. The people writing songs about this, and writing about the political things and such, that influences the music, and the music influences those movements as well, just like it did in the '60s, and with the Vietnam War, and '70s, and various different times in society. Music and this and all of these struggles go hand in hand. You hear people say, stop talking about politics and music. No, it's all about the music. It's a storytelling of what you're going through.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And that's why it bothers me when you see artists getting, canceled and stuff for saying things that aren't even like, like not even, not even. it's going against the narrative, I suppose, is what I'm saying. But you see these artists getting taken down for speaking their own mind, speaking their own truths, and whether you agree with them or not, you know, they're going to get canceled. But I think that that's the whole problem, is that you have artists who are getting silenced. We're getting silenced in ways that we can't even talk about certain issues. And you can't speak to certain issues. And like, because I felt the same way when all this was going down. Is like, I'm glad that the attention is being brought to police brutality and the ridiculousness that this country can be at times. But we're not allowed to question that either. We're not allowed to question any part of that movement. And when you have organizations like BLM, you had who are saying they're trained Marxists, and I'm not going into the like Marxist, whole thing, but what I'm saying is that these people who were running the BLM now live in the hills of Los Angeles, in Laguna Hills, I think is where they live, or whatever it was. What I'm seeing is that they want everyone else to sort of be equal, but them, right? There's always someone who has to be elevated above everyone else and so I'm seeing the hypocrisy within it, and the fact that we can't even like talk about that in certain venues in certain ways, I feel is antithetical to moving forward, because now all we're doing is sort of dividing, and people are starting to take a place on their sides instead of sort of being like, you know what? The police were beating the shit out of all of us. Okay? It was like everyone's getting shit on here. And I'm not taking away from the fact at all that fucking black and brown people get shit on in this country. But I am going to say that there's more white people get killed by police than black people. I'm not saying that this is right or wrong. There's also more white people in this world. So, in this country. So, there's that to consider. There's a lot of things that are sort of getting overlooked. And getting
but at the same time, though, let's since we're going there,
let's do it.
So the thing about it is, so yes, of course, still white people getting shot, still white people getting killed and such. But if the population of black people and brown people is so much smaller, like why is it? The thing about the ratio should be that means there should be more white people in jail than black people. But in certain areas, there's more black people in jail than white people.
Right.
It's just, we could go into it and get deep into it.
You're right.
But the thing about it is that, if you look at this, that means at the same percentage wise, there should be more white people getting locked up and killed, so more than black people. But in a lot of places, that's not the case. Mm-hmm. Black and brown people are dying and being incarcerated at a mass rate compared to white counterpart. Even if the percentage is lower, it should. I mean, it's
No, I know. I know where you're coming from, and like I don't want you to think that I'm just like fuck all lives matter, goddamn. I'm not that kind of thing. I'm saying that there are certain things, there are certain truths and facts and numbers that are coming from respectable institutions, which can also be questioned because who fucking knows anymore what's right and what's wrong. But there are these reports that show certain numbers that get overlooked, that get left out of the conversation. And to bring those things up, you are now labeled as a racist or a misogynist.
Yeah, but at the same time, like people do know what's facts and what's wrong. The thing about it is you have to put in the work. You have to do the numbers. You have to put in the research. You can't do anything just on the surface level of these things, because when you get into it deeper, the numbers are there. People's like, well, okay, for instance, they're like, you get poor white people in certain parts of the country who was like, well, I haven't gotten anything. I haven't done anything, but you haven't been systematically pinpointed by the government to have laws placed on you so that you could never go anywhere. Even as a poor white person, you could still level up at a certain time faster than a black person, because you couldn't even live in certain neighborhoods as a black person. You couldn't even walk in buildings as a black person. You couldn't even get jobs as a black
Couldn't
person.
buy a
You
house
couldn't.
in a neighborhood. Yeah.
If you owned a house in a certain neighborhood, they made laws to get you out of that neighborhood and back into certain areas. So it was just like it's the laws were pinpointing against black, brown, other people. Yes, the shit is bad on all levels, but at the same time, there's numbers out here that's showing, what as a government has. The thing about it is the government as a whole is going to do what's best for capitalism, no matter what. That's just, it doesn't matter black, brown, or what. If you're not there to help them make money, they're going to push you aside and push you down, just like cops. They don't care if you're black, white, or whatever. If you're in their way and not doing what they tell you to do, then they're going to, then you're going to get pushed to the side as well.
Yeah.
And that's what America was seeing, that it wasn't just black and brown people getting shitted on. It was all people.
Yeah.
As well.
Well, and like I feel, and I'd just like to, I'd like to address that as well. Is like I do believe that people should address white privilege, and I'm half Mexican, but I'm white, right? Like there's no like fucking Farnell Newton's like, oh look at this. I'm sure that's not what you said in your head. Look at this white guy, but it's like you see me, I'm white guy. I'm half Mexican. All right, like it's so there is a need for people who are of the fairer skin to take into consideration that there is that bias, that white privilege does exist. And I've seen it personally. I'm married to a black woman. Like I've seen just how people react to that. I've seen, I've seen it happen. I've seen it happen with my own eyes. And so I do know that because I am of the fairer skin, that there is a privilege that comes with that. And I don't mind. And I think that was a great thing that came out of all of last year and what's been bubbling up for the last 400 or 500 years. But it's like, there is this other part of the argument and that that doesn't get brought up. And I think that it should be brought up is that who kills the most Mexican people in this country? Who kills the most white people in this country? Who kills the most black people in this country? It's all of the same race. Mexicans kill the most Mexicans. Blacks kill the most blacks. Whites kill the most whites. And so this sort of like black on black crime, Mexican, brown on brown crime. And as soon as you bring that up, things get wild. And I'm not saying that, there's some historical things that lead to these causes, and I'm all with that. But then to bring that up even is a carnal sin. I mean, how do you?
Oh yeah, well that's a whole different thing. I believe.
How is that different? I'm curious.
Yeah, I believe that we should be able to have these discussions and have these conversations and such, because that's how we learn. That's how we. But guess what? It's also important to have these discussions with people who don't think like you and believe like you, so you could actually. Then you could go and have some takeaway points and learn some points and learn about these things. Like people are just finding out about black towns that was actually, burned, killed. Like people are just finding out about Tulsa,
yeah, man.
Oklahoma. And they're just like, what do you mean? A whole black community was burned down, bombed by planes. And but these are things that are getting erased in history, or about the black towns who were like literally destroyed and then basically buried or underdeveloped or didn't have the resources to keep sustaining them, so they kind of just erase out of history. But this is what's important is good to step away and check this stuff out and to learn more about it. Like people are learning about the residential school stuff. This is not new stuff. This is old stuff that's been happening. Native people have been saying for a long time that their people has been disappearing and not coming home and not. But the thing about it is a lot of people just get turned on to this stuff because of the media, because of people are finally doing more deeper dives and finding out what is the system of all of this. Because if you just listen to what you hear online, you got to put in the time and the work and the effort to learn more about it and and we should have these discussions because some people don't know about certain things,
Yeah.
I mean, it's just people don't know about redlining, and people don't know about Jim Crow, and some people don't know about uh, 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 I mean, it's all kind of things that's been happening in this country and such. People don't know about. People are like, well, why aren't black people wanting to get vaccinated as just like anyone else? So it's like, well, dude, it's been years of documented experimentation on black communities and people, and you think they're just going to be like, hey, we're going with the government.
Lining
It's
up.
just like,
Yeah, no.
it's like this stuff is well documented, but you have to go look for it. You have to have these discussions. But I'm all about having these discussions with people and not being because some people you can't even have these discussions with people
Right.
because then they already labeling you and they shitting on you and they putting you down. But I'm like, hey, I want to have these discussions so I could get some takeaway from it and learn more. And also I might learn more myself, or someone else might learn more.
Yeah, absolutely. How much of what do you think what went on last year and what's going on this year still? I mean, how much do you think the media had to do with the dissension? I guess I framed that in a shitty way. How much do you think? How much do you think the media is in play when it comes to all our disagreements as a society?
Oh, very much. I mean, hell, we could people. I mean, dude, you could turn on the TV and you hear the stuff that are getting spouted off on Fox and these other networks, and you're like, huh? You're like, wait, how are they? How did they take? I mean, but that's just the thing about it. Even with religion, you take a book like the Bible, and people could just pinpoint one little thing and make a whole different story out of it that fits their narrative. So that's what media does. They're gonna, if they're left or they're right or they're conservative or liberal, they're gonna spin every story according to their framework or their beliefs. I mean, I believe it. But that's the same thing. It's like hearing a story. Like someone's like, "Yo, man, I was at this show, man, and I heard that the horn players didn't get paid for the show." And you're like, "Well, I heard that the horn players did get paid." And you're like, "But I talked to so and so, and this person believes that." And you're like, "But I talked to so and so." It's just like you got to get all the news. You got to get all the stories. You just can't go by what you hear on media and TV. You have to dive into the stuff. If you hear something, you're like, "Wow, I never heard about that." Go online, start digging, start searching, start researching the stuff and finding out more about it so you could be up to date to what's happening. And then you might find out why is it the way it is.
Yeah, no, I agree, and I think that the media is taking a step further. Is that they want shit to burn because that's what sold papers, that's what sold clicks, that's what. I mean, let's face it. The last 4 years have been a gold mine for mainstream media. Fucking shitting on Trump has been very profitable. Which I was doing the same thing, but it's very obvious, that this is a business, is a corporation, and it's very scary. Even you mentioned, like, if you hear something that don't sound right on the news, then go Google it. But then Google is throttling your search and leaving out information now too.
Oh yeah, and you got to go. Like I was researching. Researching native tribes in Oregon, and even then, you just can't read the first 20 results. And sometimes if you search for things, you can't find anything from a certain amount of years ago. Like you have to search and you have to dig deep, because if you just look at what pops up on the surface, you're not going to learn more about it.
Yeah, no,
I mean, just because a school might talk about something in their subject, but you have to find out why is it is, why. Yeah. Okay. So, Thomas Jefferson, like, or presidents, or why laws are certain way they are. It's like, you got to dig deep, man, because you're not going to find it on the surface at all.
No.
It's just the way it is. And like I said, people going to twist stories according to push their own agenda.
Yeah, totally. And the fact that that's like basically what the mainstream media has become is they become basically the stenographers for, like, MSNBC, CNN are basically the stenographers for the Democratic Party, whereas Fox has become the Republicans, mouthpiece, and
Yeah.
and they're completely controlled, and they're not even allowed to question the government because they're on. That's not what press was supposed to be.
Yeah.
Press was
So
always
so so if you grew like and the thing about it, you get some of these politicians. I've seen remarks some politician made. They're like, "Do you think there's racism in America?" And they're like, "No, I don't think so." And I'm just like, if you grew up your entire life in a predominantly white community,
upper class.
upper class, that you know, and the media and everything that is given to you and showed and exposed to you is of what you think should be success or maybe conservative or whatever. That's you don't see anything else that's happening. You don't know about anything else that's happening. Like my wife teaches social justice classes and anti-bias learning and anti-racist learning and at the university here in Portland, at Portland State. And you get these kids from outer suburbs who think like all the schools have the same resources in the state.
Yeah.
And then she puts them in an inner city school to observe classes and to observe teachers and the students. And then the students come back to class and they're like, oh my God, like there's no support. They don't have the same books. They don't have the same classes. They don't even have the same lunch. Like, they don't have the funding, and they find these things out and see that it's across the board, not the same everywhere in America or where they're from. But the thing about it, you wouldn't know that if you just live in your bubble.
Right.
You wouldn't know these things unless, and it's just the same way. You go to Google search and you get exactly what you search for that particulars to you, because they're targeting you, retargeting you to show you what they want you to see. So now you gotta dig in deep. You gotta listen, you gotta read, you just can't go by Google. You gotta read books, you gotta read stories, you'll learn so much. It's like, it's sickening,
Yeah.
and people have their own take and spin on everything. And it's like, that's great if you believe that, but that's not the whole story. You haven't participated in the whole story, because I've done many research from my Black side and my Native side, and I hear people saying, well, the natives gets money from the government and casinos. And I'm like, dude, do you know about all the treaties and all of the contracts that was forged and not honored? And yeah, they give you land, but guess what? They give you land that no one wants because it's hard to grow. It's hard to be successful. And you're supposed to take that and be like, okay, I'm happy. The government's taking care of me, or these companies like J.P. Morgan, who's made their money and their riches from slave wages, not wages, slavery, and made their money in cotton and in tobacco and such. And but you got to do these research. You got to read. You can't just take anything just by the surface, And that comes to music too. You got to dive into it. It's the same thing with music. Some people just think like, oh, I listen to James Brown, that's great. No, like what are you really understanding what's happening? The rhythm, the bass, the instrumentation. Are you really, I've been fortunate to tour with people like Bootsy and play with a lot of people who worked with James Brown and such, and hear the stories and hear the what's important about the one and funk and such. And but you have to do the research because it's out there, but you got to find it.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I think the one thing that does suck and that stands in the way of people actually doing that is this censorship of Google and this censorship, and we don't have to go far into this, but like a great example of this was when Facebook, Google, YouTube were all like, as soon as people started talking about the lab leak theory, as soon as Trump started talking about the lab leak theory, No, it came from a pangolin that screwed a pig. You know, like it's and like nobody, like people were getting taken down, people were getting canceled, and Google, you couldn't even search that stuff on Google, and now, well, look at this. A year later, we're finding out that this is a very plausible theory that might have happened. And maybe if we would have been able to solidify it and look into it last year, we could be that much further on preventing this next thing from happening again, you know, the next pandemic. And so like it's very dangerous when you start censoring information, and when people want, all they want is to be informed. I mean, information is power, and they know that. And they don't think that we're capable of handling certain information. And I find that kind of fuck that. I don't like that. Like I find
Of course.
you know,
But it's all about from their narrative, where they're from. Texas is now, you go to certain parts of cities and certain parts of states, educational wise, the books are doctrine to tell the stories that aligns with their beliefs, with their political beliefs, religion beliefs, and such. So then you look at a textbook from a different part, a state and such, that hasn't been censored or paid for, or the money given from a conservative source or from a liberal source. The books are different. Like, you know, they're trying to give you the story that they want you to know to keep you aligned and supporting their beliefs. And I mean, it's happening. I mean, it's been happening, but it's still happening. And that's the thing about, depending on where you turn on the TV and where you land, like what story you're going to get. But that can't be the only story that you believe. You know, that can't be the only narrative, no matter what, you know. And I feel like that's in everything I do. It's all about trying to find the truth and researching and finding out more, because there's so much more deep to the story that a lot of people just don't know.
Yeah.
And they just haven't been exposed to it. And then, but that's the great thing about finding out these things and such, you know, like we have, I mean, it's across the board, like shocking, because I feel like every day people are getting exposed to things and they're just like, wait, is this a thing? And I'm like, yeah, this has been a thing. I grew up knowing this thing. Yeah. But for other people in different parts of the country, where they grew up or where they was raised and how they was raised, they've never heard these stories before.
Right.
You know, I mean, I didn't know. When you hear about Juneteenth, we always hear about slavery. The Underground Railroad was the Harriet Tubman, and the Underground Railroad was taking people from down south to up north. But did I ever think about, if you lived in Texas, you weren't really running up north. Sometimes you was running down south. Wow. And there's Black Mexican communities that formed because of slaves moving from Texas to running to Mexico for freedom. But I would never have thought that, because I didn't know these things. I never heard it and stuff. But then I started reading these articles about it, and I was like, holy crap! Why wouldn't I think of that? You know, that's the closest place for them to get away from and such. And then also, then you got stories about now Black slaves mixing with the Mexican population and those various different things. Because those are stories and things that are out there and such, but I don't know about, but you have to do the research. And like, I was dumbfounded. I just found that out this year when I was looking up some things about Juneteenth to write about for work.
Yeah, I just learned about that right now.
I was like, holy crap. Like you thinking always run up north. But if you all the way have to one of the furthest southern states, you're not running up north. You're going down.
Right. Yeah, I mean, you know, I don't even know is there a history of like the Mexicans enslaving people too? Like, I don't know. I mean,
but that's a whole nother thing.
Right,
that's like we're not taught those things. We don't hear those stories. We don't. Right. But the thing about it is, that doesn't mean that they don't exist.
Right.
And that doesn't mean that they're not out there. But like I said, you have to find these things. You have to search. You have to, you know, get your your research hat on and go out there and figure it out. I mean, it's crazy. You know,
It is
like
crazy.
my wife just found out a couple of years ago that she always knew she had native ancestry, but she didn't know. She grew up a white girl in Oregon, but
Hmm.
she found out that her like great aunts and people were um, Métis and people from like native people from Manitoba and different places who were in like residential schools and who have like who have disappeared and died at these schools as well. And it's just like we're learning all of this stuff because this information is being available to us through places like ancestry, or because ancestry is archiving all of this information from towns and census bureaus and things like that. And it's like we're finding out people that we never knew we were connected to and such. I mean, but the thing about it is it's out there, but we have to, it's not even about Google. It's about just sometimes going to that area of the country. Like my
Yeah.
aunt does that. She'll go to Oklahoma and Arkansas and try to find, our descendants and relatives and such. It's crazy.
Wow, that's really
I
cool.
mean,
That's really
it's,
cool that
it's
that
but the thing
she.
about it's a lot of work, at time. But
Right, right. Yeah.
but like I said, all of that is great, and I love, and I'm all about that. But all of that makes up who I am, and that makes up who I represent musically as well, and talk about, and you know as well, and connect with music and other musicians with these stories
Yeah.
and tales and such.
Yeah, and okay, so Reina has requested Hot Boy Summer fucking like 10 times, so I'm gonna do it. It's a quick little thing, and then when we come
I
back,
want to I want to see it.
God damn it! Look, when we come back, let's talk about Bootsy, baby,
Is
and
this
Jill,
you
and
doing a
Miss Jill.
Chet? You doing a Chet Hanks Hot Boys? Oh, Hot Boy Summer, not White Boy Summer.
Not White Boys. Oh hell no! I'm not doing White Boy Summer, son. That is not in my wheelhouse. All right. Let's. Farnell, it's been warm outside. Some say it's been hot. It's been a hot boy summer. Drink my White Claw while I buy my Bitcoin with my Biden bucks. To the moon, bitch. Yeah, and while I rub one out to Joe Rogan's podcast. MMA. It's gonna be a hot boy summer. It's gonna be hot boy summer. It's gonna be a hot boy summer. It's gonna be a hot boy summer. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Pop Molly pill, drink muscle milk while I'm smoking my douche flute. I hit on a girl that told me to put my shirt back on. Flex on a track. It's gonna be a hot boy summer. 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 Yeah, yeah, yeah. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Dear baby Jesus, buy me a lifted truck. Dear baby Jesus, can you give me a lifted truck? Dear baby Jesus, can you lift my truck higher? Higher! Higher! It's gonna be hot boy summer. It's gonna be a hot boy summer. It's gonna be a hot boy summer. It's gonna be a hot boy summer. It's gonna be hot.
Wow. It's gonna be a hot boy summer.
There you guys go. Hey, by the way, everybody, I'm uploading that to Spotify, so that will be available soon. That's right, we got that. Oh, let me get you. There it is. So that's gonna come out on Spotify, but I just uploaded thank you so much, Mighty. I just uploaded it to the Discord, so if you are subbed, you can go download that right now, fully mastered and uncut. There you go, world. And Reina, thank you so much for embarrassing me in front of Farnell here. There you go. Okay, and then you have an AMA. Lo-fi jazz soul as an AMA. What's the AMA? It's just Hot Boy Summer. it's
just Hot Boy Summer.
It's just Hot Boy Summer, baby. Just Hot Boy Summer. That's how we're doing it. Farnell, you've worked with and you've gone on tour with some amazing people. A couple who, I mean, everyone that I've seen on your credits is like I'm just a fan of. Some people I didn't know, but I'm sure they're big in the jazz world. I'm not the hugest jazz head, but I do love jazz. And Miles Davis is like my all-inspiring musician of my life. So just so you know, I love Miles Davis.
Nice.
and he's inspired me beyond. I don't play horns. I'm mostly a keyboard player, but but Bitches Brew is just.
Oh yeah. I mean, Miles was like the king of swag.
Right.
He had a vibe, boy.
He did, and I even used his. I used a quote by him today in here because you're a trumpet player. I decided if you understood everything I say, you'd be me. There you go, Miles Davis. Such an asshole. He was such an amazing asshole, though. Like, did you ever read his books or his autobiography?
Yeah, and I watched a lot of his interviews and. A lot of the interviews that was pretty hilarious and
so funny,
over the top, and like, I mean, yeah, he didn't give a shit. You know?
No, he didn't give. He gave very, very, very little to no shits. But I love. I mean, he's just fucking genius, and is just a seminal influence on just in every way. So, but anyways, how did you get linked up with Bootsy Collins? How does that happen? You're in Portland. How does that work?
What was that? I was playing. I met the saxophone player Mike Phillips. Mike Phillips played with Stevie Wonder. He played with Prince doing the musicology tour and such, and he also worked with Michael Jackson. And Mike was like, "Dude, you're dope, and I want you to work with me." And basically Mike just dragged me around the world with him, from 2009 on. So
is Mike a local guy?
What'd you say?
Is Mike a Portland cat?
Well, now he lives in Portland, but he's originally from Mount Vernon, New York. Money earning, Mount Vernon, New York. But so I think one of the first gigs I did with him was on this cruise ship called the Capital Jazz cruise ship. But then right after that, he was like, "Hey, I got the call. They want me to put a horn section together for the Soul Train Awards band." So it was me, Mike Phillips, and on trombone was Greg Boyer, who played with Parliament Funkadelics, and Maceo Parker, and like everybody.
Oh.
And one of the featured artists on the Soul Train Awards that year was Bootsy Collins. So I met Bootsy, met his wife, I met his like sound tech man, and right after that, Bootsy hit up Mike Phillips and was like, "Hey, I'm working on a new record, Funk Capital of the World, and I need some horns on the project." So me and Mike went in the studio, recorded horns for a song called Freedom that had Dr. Cornel West on it.
Oh, sweet.
And then Bootsy hit up Mike again and was like, "Hey, I need horns for another song." So Mike hit me up and was like, "Hey, Bootsy needs some more horns. Can you run this session?" So I got some horns together, recorded some other horns and such. And so that worked out. and the record came out. It was a great record. It was featuring all kind of great musicians and such. And then fast forward to 2011, I did the 2011 Soul Train Awards, and who's on there again? Bootsy Collins.
Yeah.
He's playing again. Keep in touch with him, stay in contact and such. And then fast forward to 2013, around June, I was like at work. I worked for a company called OCP at the time, this Catholic sheet music company. Mike Phillips hit me up and said, "Hey man, I'm going on the road with Jill Scott. I want you to come and play with me." And I was like, okay, I got to talk to the wife first. And so I called up the wife and I was like, hey, Mike just called me up and wants me to go on the road with Jill Scott. And she knew I was already this is 2013. I've been a big Jill Scott fan since 2000, since she first came out.
Gosh, she's so
and I told her, I said, hey, if my career doesn't go forward and up in like 6 months, then we need to have this discussion and have a talk about it, if I'm going to be on the road or not. So I do Jill Scott rehearsal for a month, rehearsing the band.
Where's this
ready
at?
for tours. What was that?
Did you have to leave Portland?
Yeah. I was in Philadelphia for a month
Wow.
doing rehearsals. We were on the road doing rehearsals and shows stuff. And we're about to hit the touring dates and such. And I see we're going to Cincinnati. So I was like, okay, cool. And at the Macy's Music. And I see that Bootsy Collins is opening up today. So I emailed Bootsy Collins and I was like, yo, Bootsy, we're going to be in Cincinnati. I'm playing with Jill Scott and, we're closing out before Charlie Wilson of the Gap Band.
Dang.
And so I get an email back and Bootsy's like, hey, well, why don't you, when you get in, come and sit in with us. So I go and they're all wearing space outfits, like these space suits and such. And they didn't have one big enough for me. So I'm wearing like half of a space suit, but with a Bootsy Collins t-shirt.
Hell yeah.
And it's funny because the Jill Scott guys are like making fun of me and such. But also people are like, had me concerned because they was like, yo, man, do they know you're going to sit in with Bootsy? Like, Jill might be, and I was like, okay, let me talk to the MD and just clear up everything. I was like, I'm just sitting there with Bootsy, And so I did that. We did the show. It was great. It was killing. I think probably, and earlier in that year, 2013, I remember Bootsy was doing a show at NAMM in California. And Bootsy used to send out these emails with a little like Bible quote at the end, just like wishing everybody well, hoping everyone's good. And I remember hitting him up and being like, yo, Bootsy, I'm at NAMM. I'll see you tomorrow. And I get an email 5 minutes back that was like, Farnell, what are you doing tomorrow? We need you for a show. We're playing at the John Lennon bus. And he only had one horn. No, he had two horns. He had a Sarah Morrow, who played trombone with Dr. John, my man Randy Villars on sax, and I joined them on trumpet, and I rehearsed music with them in the hotel, rehearsing, and we get up there, and it's like I'm standing next to Bernie Worrell, and I'm like, and Verdine White is up there from Earth, Wind and Fire, and like all of these like what was it? Blackbird McKnight from P-Funk and Michael Hampton from Parliament Funkadelics, all of these bands, it's just like all of these OGs up there. And but then, so after I did the Macy's Festival and sat in with Bootsy, a month later, I get a call from his wife and it was like, hey, we want you to join our band.
Oh.
And I was like, oh, shoot. And I was like, well, I'm with Jill Scott, but if we could make it work out, I would love to be a part of it because I'm like, Bootsy Collins is a legend. Like, I growing up, as a young kid in the 80s and late 80s, and when, NWA was coming out and sampling all the West Coast stuff was coming out, sampling all the Bootsy Collins stuff. I knew Bootsy from NWA because, he had, like Eazy-E had a song, We Want Easy, which was We Want Bootsy.
Right.
Bootsy, but it was like Eazy-E. So I found out about that funk music besides hearing it from my family and in neighborhoods and parties and such. I found out about the funk through the G-funk movement. And
Hmm.
so I was like, yo, if I could be a part of, I mean, Boosie's legendary. Like,
Hell yeah.
I was like, I was probably conceived to rather be with you. That song came out like 76, 77. I was born 77. But so I started going on the road with Bootsy Collins and Jill. I was split between the time. I might be out on the road with a month or two with Jill, and I'll jump on the road and literally fly out to Bootsy shows. And then I'll fly back to Jill's shows that I might fly home for a week, and then I might fly back out and such. So it was a lot of traveling, a lot of flights, a lot of bus rides and such, playing with Bootsy and Jill Scott. And I mean, and the thing about Bootsy is like one of a kind, man. He's one of the sweetest guys. And you see him on the stage, and he's like, "What?"
Yeah, yeah.
And then, but when you're at rehearsals, he's like, "Hey," he used to call me Neutron. He'd be like, "Hey, Neutron, man, when you do that thing on the horn, I need this section, right?" And he was very like chill, low temperament until you didn't get the groove right. If the groove wasn't right, then he'd be like, "Hey, we got to get this right. This is the funk. We got to play on the one." And such. But it was just an honor because playing with Bootsy, Razor Sharp Johnson, who's original keyboardist in Bootsy band, also played with Parliament. You had Frankie Cashwati drums, who played with Bootsy, James Brown, all of those different bands. And you had Mudbone Cooper, who sang, that had his own bands and played with Parliament and P-Funk and Bootsy, and had a big hit in the 80s and was killing it. And so it was just an honor to be with these guys and hear the stories about their inner and outer body experiences, being in Parliament, and just hearing these stories and being approved by and having the cosign of approval by these legends.
Yeah.
And that's how, because of that, I played on a jam cruise. I don't remember which year, probably 2014 January or something like that. Was on there with Bootsy Collins, and that's where I was hanging out with Nigel Hall and Eric Benny Bloom from Lettuce, and got to finally meet Deitch, Adam Deitch from Lettuce and Break Science, and start rubbing elbows with everyone and hanging out with Dumpster Funk and Carl Denson and all of these people, and that kind of kickstarted a lot of my connections in the jam scene, and working with those guys, and next thing you know, Carl Denson's hitting me up to play shows, and then Bear Creek is happening, and Dumpster Funk needs a horn player, or and different people need subs or wants me to work with them and such, and that kind of kicked off that my career in that. And also just shout out to Nigel Hall and Eric Benny Bloom, because those dudes like really was like, yo, we family, you cool with me, like you roll with me. Yeah. Like Nigel was like, yo, when I'm on the stage, you're on the stage. So it was just like that camaraderie and that love, kind of like co-signed me into the scene.
So dope. Yeah,
So,
and that's a huge thing too, man, to get, you're a made man now in that scene, and to be on that call list, is that's so cool. I mean, that's what people are working for. Some people. Was there, when you were working with Bootsy and stuff, was there any kind of was there a story or any advice he gave you that would just always stuck with you, and by the way, Adam Flair wants you to give him Bootsy's phone number. And there you go. There's your answer, Adam. That's your answer.
Nobody gives Bootsy's phone number.
Nobody.
You're not gonna have nobody, because they're gonna call me.
It's like, why the hell?
Neutron. That's like people to this day be like, "Hey man, can you put me in touch with Jill Scott?" I'm like, I want to hire her for a show, and I'm like, okay. I don't think people really understand what it takes to bring these artists to. I'm like, dude, do you have like 80, $100,000. Like, like you got to remember, she's traveling with a 10-piece band, a stylist, a makeup person, road manager, front house, monitor man, lights, and like you got 20 people, and travel and fare and hotel, and all of these different things that goes into these shows, and it's pretty crazy. But back to Bootsy. Yeah, Bootsy always was like the king of dropping like knowledge and knowledge bombs and such. And I remember once we were talking about just like young people growing up. Um, and Boosie was like, you can't put all the blame on the kids. You cannot put all the blame on the kids. Like, you got to understand that they growing up in a house with parents who are teaching them or advising them or giving them good influences or bad influences. Like, you can't come down on these kids. You gotta be willing to get on their level and talk to them and mentor them and work with them to give them, and then after that, you can kind of talk about or whatever. But that it's just like always. Boosie was always about reaching out to people, mentoring, talking to people, working with people. I mean, that's just what he's about. Even talking to those guys, and they were like, man, when the G Funk stuff was popping off, sometimes some of them felt like, man, we should have mentored them more. We should have really stepped in more than we did, as far as when Dr. Dre, and Easy, and all of those guys was diving into the funk movement of
Yeah.
the '90s and such. Uh, but I mean, Boosie just always had tidbits and just words of wisdom that I just carry around with me and how I function. Because I tell people, I say, if you listen to Boosie and around Boosie, you can understand how I am around people and collaborating and working with younger people. Like, that's the thing about it. I I don't have a bunch of streams and on a bunch of tracks just because I'm a great trumpeter. It's because I love collaborating with people, and I love mentoring, and I love connecting with the younger generation. Like, I just cut 2 songs with these artists. They're both 18.
That's awesome.
One of them we got like 1 million streams on some lo-fi project. The other guy we got like 500,000 streams. He's one just finished high school, and one just is at Berkeley School of Music,
Oh,
just
hell
finished
yeah.
his first year. And it's
Okay.
like always just trying to be a mentor. But I also was a mentor and worked with kids for 10 years. So, I'm always trying to make sure that to make kids, feel safe, feel that they're worthwhile, and that just always being there for them to show that we're there for them, you
Yeah.
know. And that's just how I've always been, and that kept kids out of trouble. That kept kids from getting into gangs. That kept kids involved in something positive, And I now these kids are growing up now and having kids and mentors, and they're mentoring people and coming out to my shows and supporting and such. So it goes a long way.
It really does. I mean, that's amazing for you to be able to sit here and say it's like I mentored someone like 10 years ago, and now that tradition, that lineage, that you imparted on them. I mean, it's you're giving back, like, right? That's like giving back to what your opportunities that were offered you in your lifetime. That's so beautiful, man. How did your family take it when you were touring heavily, internationally like this? How was it? How was that impacting your family and your personal life? Because I know personally from touring and stuff, it can be stressful. And I'm not asking for you to give me, personal anything, but
Well, speaking of, my wife is just speaking, and yeah, she was holding it down.
that's awesome.
Like she, literally when this was 2013. Like our 2 kids here were, let me see, that was like, I mean, they were like 3 and like 1.5, and I had like a 3-year-old daughter and a 1.5-year-old son,
It's
and
tough.
she was like holding it down, like,
Wow.
but I also made sure that I always stayed connected, stayed in communication. At the time, since I was making more money, I was like, yo, I'm going to have a cleaning person come every week,
Hell
so
yeah.
You didn't have to, because like
Oh,
who wants to have to worry about, you're wrangling two little kids and being with them all days. Like little kids, like now that they're older,
yeah.
they got their laptops, they got video games, they got
Yeah.
their friends, they could kind of manage their own things, except when they drive each other crazy. And but at the time when kids are 1.5-year old walking and 3 years old, you gotta be with them all the time.
Yeah.
So, I had the yard guys coming, the cleaning people coming, taking care of things to alleviate some of the stress while
Oh,
she
that's
was
awesome.
still a full-time professor at Portland State and
Wow.
such. But she held it down. She supported me while I was out there. And we support each other as far as our careers and what we do. And like I said, she has an organization dealing with anti bias learning and books and we just always support each other. And because of that, I feel like that really helped me get to, because we were supposed to have that talk. I said in 6 months, if my career with Jill Scott is not going forward and up in 6 months, we need to have that discussion and probably reevaluate. I need to probably come back home and make sure I take a day gig again and whatever. But like 3 years later, 4 years later, then I'm like, okay, it's time to stop. And at the
Maybe
time,
it's time to slow down a little.
yeah. And at the time, her dad was sick, my father-in-law was sick,
Wow.
and everything before he passed away. So it was like, you know what? It's time to be home now.
Yeah.
My older daughters was getting older, and it was just like it's time to be around for the family, for everyone,
Wow.
for everyone's health and stability and such as well. So,
So
and
was
I just been here, working and playing in Portland and such since.
so it was never a case of like the gigs dried up. It was always the case of like I need to be home with my family. It's time.
Oh yeah, yeah.
That's amazing.
Oh, who said? So I said, did she clean before the cleaners come? You have to. Like, I didn't know this. So, you don't know these things until it's happened. Like, I've never had a cleaner before because I remember my wife. We would be cleaning the house. I'm like, I thought they just come and did everything for us. Like, no, you get the house. We did certain things, and then they just come and surface cleaning. They're just like cleaning bathrooms
See,
and
I didn't know that
vacuuming and windows and things like they're doing like surface level things. So they're not going to come in and fold your laundry for you unless you're balling and you're making money like that though for that type of cleaner. These are like people that come in for an hour and does everything and makes things like
do a little dusting here and there. Yeah.
Yeah. So you don't have like a messed up bathroom, a messed up, dirt everywhere and dust piled up everywhere. So, I didn't know that because I never had a cleaner, I'm like, I never was at that point in my life, I was like, shoot.
I'm a musician. What do you thinking?
Yeah, but you have to clean before the cleaners.
I don't like that. I don't like
but the thing about it is like, she really held it down and my success as I mean, that literally launched my career on another level where I was working and collaborating with artists literally worldwide.
Yeah.
And it was because of her supporting me,
That's beautiful.
I mean, we're a couple. We go through ups and downs. We deal with communication and music and life and fandom and crazy people and such like that. But, we still support each other and push each other through it.
Yeah, well, that's beautiful, man. That's beautiful. We're getting close to the end here, and I just I love Jill Scott and I love Lettuce. I love Galactic. I love all those artists, but just is there anything that you learned from Jill Scott and just from her as a person, as a human, that you can glean on to us?
I mean, she was a storyteller. She was about, the thing about it, Bootsy was like the show. He was about the glitz, the glamour, the show, but he was also about the music has to be tight. People would think like people like Bootsy would just be a jam band. No, like the show from the first note to the last note, it was a show. It was put together tight. With Jill Scott, it was put together tight as well, but there was definitely loose parts in it and organic, creative parts in it. But she was about being a storyteller, connecting with the audience. Literally, people would be in the audience crying and like full blown like tears, like falling out and such because she was a storyteller. She was about connecting with the artist in that way that I've never seen before as with anyone I performed with.
Mm.
I mean, that was like mind-boggling to be that connected emotionally with people and such. And it's draining, but she was always about like taking care of your people around you, your family, your loved ones, and she was just super supportive as well in my career, and very helpful for um, supporting the music I was releasing and such as well, and showcasing that too. She would make sure to say that at our shows nightly. Like, ladies and gentlemen, this young man just released a new record, trumpeter Farnell Newton.
Oh, wow.
Like, she didn't have to do that.
Right.
She pays me to play the music for her,
Right.
and that's my job. I do it or I don't, and I get sent home or whatever. But she gave us so much love and showcased us
Wow.
as well. And yeah, she was all about the storytelling. Like, yeah, there's nobody I could still put on Jill Scott today. I remember once time where we were all in Chicago, and I felt like I wasn't doing my job I wasn't focused enough. I started listening to her words a little more than I usually do, and I got kind of caught up in what she was saying, and I was kind of like start thinking about old relationships and decisions, and I was kind of like a little bit tearing up, and I look over, the drummers look like he about to tear up, and like everybody's got caught in the moment, and it's like, woo, okay, we got a job to do. We got to play this music, but the people in the audience is just like tearing up, and like, it's just like, I mean, that's the power of music, like we've all gone through good and hard and bad times, and it's like, this music is here to heal. It heals, it helps, it rejuvenates, it can help you through a lot of hard things in life, but it gives us joy.
Yeah, it definitely.
Yeah.
We got one more question from the chat, and they said, "Is your horn within reach, and can we get a taste?"
Wow.
That is totally optional for you, sir. I don't want to put you on the spot.
Yeah,
Penny
I'm
did
not
it.
gonna play now. I got a horn here.
Oh, look at that!
I haven't played today.
All right.
Well, whatever. But I haven't played my horn today. Here's a. Okay.
That was all. Oh, I didn't hook it up, but here we go. I got. There you go.
I haven't touched my horn today. My face.
That's okay. That's okay. That was great. You didn't know that you were gonna have to do that, so I appreciate that. Farnell Newton, thank you so much for coming on the show and just talking and chatting. That was absolutely wonderful. Everyone in chat, make sure you go and follow him up on all his socials and keep up to date with what he's doing. He just dropped a new song today it was a collaboration called Good Times, and that's by what artist? What was the name of the artist?
Easy McCoy.
Easy McCoy. So go out and check it out. You can easily get to it from his Instagram. So if you want to go follow it, check out the tune, go check it out, please. And if you're listening on the audio end, make sure you go into the show notes and click around and support your boy. Farnell Newton, thank you so much. And you have a wonderful rest of your day. And
thank you so much.
It was an honor and a pleasure, sir.
Definitely.
Right on, man.
Take care.
You too, buddy. I'll talk to you later. All right. Boom. There was, everybody. What y'all think? We're not gonna do Cypher Deluxe today because my day was all fucked up. So we're going to go right over to Wooby One, who it is Noodle Bean's birthday today. So we are going to go check out DJ Wooby One. Monday, I don't have a guest. So it might be Marbles. It might be Marbles on Monday, or it might be Bentley. I don't know. So I'm not sure what's going on. Again, this was a weird one because I don't know, for whatever reason, Twitch wasn't letting me go live, and then it just went live in the middle of our conversation. So I don't know what the hell was up with that, but I'll make sure that I'll export this video out into my YouTube. So if anybody missed the first part of the conversation, I've been recording it on my Streamlabs, so it's all good. I have the whole thing on tape, so I will upload that as soon as possible to YouTube, so you guys can catch the whole thing. That's it, guys. I had a whole thing today. Nailed it. I had a whole thing today, you guys. I had like an intro. I had like overlays, new overlays, but that will have to be Monday or whatever. So, okay, guys. Again, we're going to raid over to DJ Wooby1. Let's go and give him our love and support. It is Noodle Bean's birthday today, so let's wish Noodle Bean a happy birthday. And let's go lay it down. Let's go give Wooby some love. Some Wooby boobies. I don't know what that means. All right, guys. I will see you on Monday. Even if I don't have a guest, I'm going to stream. So it might be a marble day or a game day. So who knows? Bonnie, I'm sorry. And everybody who came in during the whole thing, boobs. I don't know why I lifted my boobs up. Everybody who came in today, I'm sorry I wasn't that attentive to chat. It was just a fucked up day. Well, fucked up couple hours because everything was crazy. Okay, anyways, I'll stop being weird now and awkward, and let's raid over to Wooby. I'll see you guys on Monday. Let's go. And where's the end? Oh, end show. And we're gone.